Sup nerds, I'm Wes.
I'm Tom.
We're Neverboard Gaming, and today we're taking a look at Tiny Epic Quest by Gambling Games. Tiny Epic Quest is launching on Kickstarter on October 28th. You definitely need to back this one. If you've played any of Tiny Epic games and you like them, this one is, it's one of my favorites I've played so far.
Honestly, so when I was playing it, I always do this, like I compare it to other games in my head, right? I'm like, oh, well, the dice thing is kind of like Galaxies, and the movement is kind of like Kingdoms. But honestly, it kind of got to a point after when we were starting kind of like the second round when it clicked in my head, and I was like, this is pretty dope. Like, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I am loving this. By like the third or fourth round, I was like, all right, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I am loving it. I'm loving it. Much like McDonald's, I'm loving it.
So Tiny Epic Quest is trying to emulate an open world video game where there's no like specific direction to go, there's no like Candyland track we're moving around. It's just an open board and you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to get points to get to victory, and you can do a combination, you can focus fire on one of them. Really, you could do nothing. You could just like
You just sit there
just
and
hang out.
Be done, but yeah.
How I play some video games where I'm like, the quest is over there. I just put on regular clothes and went to the market. I sold some fish today.
He basically turns every open world video game into The Sims. I think the point where I was kind of blown away was we were talking about the magic track. When you were explaining it to me, like, oh, if you come to these spots and you learn these spells and you move up, they're worth 2 points each. And like, but then there's also this thing up here. If this gets too far, then people start taking damage from wherever. It's a little bit of a press your luck. And then you said to me, you were like, yeah, but that's definitely not my style. I'm definitely not going to do that. But I could see Aaron doing that. And I went, I could see Aaron doing that too. And like all of a sudden everything just fell into place for me. It felt like this game has different avenues that are specifically built for the three of us.
Absolutely, because you can go and you can fight goblins the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, all of you guys just fighting goblins every round, which is super awesome. Or you can just quest the whole time. You can try to move those tracks up. Or you can learn spells. Or you can just go to the instant action things. Or you can try to get your power and your health super high for the next round. It fits that open world feeling of whatever your play style is. If you look at it and you're like, oh, like I don't really like being aggressive. I don't want to like go fight things. I just want to sit over here with my spell books. That's why Aaron
do it, nerd. Yeah.
Like you go do that. You don't fight anything. You just go read a book.
Go read some books.
And you could win the game that way.
Yeah, I won that way. I really do love the dice aspect because, and again, that's why I was comparing this in my head. I was like, oh, this is a mechanic stripped away from Tiny Epic Galaxies, but it's not. This has a lot more of a press your luck feel than the Tiny Epic Galaxies dice mechanic does. We need more beer? You need another?
I need another beer.
You gonna be good to go? Okay.
No, I'm drinking Yingling.
It's barely a beer.
It's basically water. So I also was looking at the game and like seeing like what it pulled from other games, what they pulled from other Tiny Epic games, and I kind of felt like the movement was kind of hinting at what pulled from Tiny Epic Kingdoms, where like when you pick a movement, everyone does that type of movement in the same way.
Like the following thing?
Yeah, in Tiny Epic Kingdoms, everyone does that action. And I think a lot of things were like that, where they pulled a lot of little things from other games that seemed relatively simple, but they came together so well, and there's so many different aspects to the game, but they're all pretty simple, but they make such like a good gameplay.
And that really is one of the things that I first thought when I saw this, is I was thinking, well, since it's kind of pulling from all these other games, there's nothing really that new. There's no single really unique mechanic that is different in this game from everything else.
Psych!
With the really huge exception of the item meeples.
Item meeples!
I honestly do think that item meeples are, I'd say they're revolutionary for the gaming industry. And I know I'm not, going crazy here and say, Tom, come on, it's just meeples with holes in them. But what it is it's taking something that, we've all come to know and love, which is just the meeple. We've come up with different shapes of it. Zombie meeples with hats on them for Tiny Epic Western. But we've taken it and we've utilized it in a different way that now, from now on, I think this is going to be in every other game. We used to have meeples saying, oh look, meeples from Carcassonne. Hey, now they're in every other game. Now item meeples with holes on them, meeples that can hold things, meeples that can do something other than just be a shape, is going to be something we're going to see a whole bunch moving forward.
This meeple has a sword and a bomb. So when Michael called me and asked us to review this game for him, my first thought wasn't, oh, I get to play Tiny Epic Quest early. My first thought was, I get to see item meeples sooner than however long it's going to take this game to fulfill. And they did not disappoint. Like I was almost a little worried at first. I'm like, what if they're not awesome? What if they suck? They don't suck. So they are made of plastic, for all of you who are wondering. The items are all white plastic. They slide in and out pretty easy. Yeah, some definitely. Of you kind of have to dig your nail under.
Yeah, but the smaller ones are harder to get in, but like the swords and stuff are super easy.
Yeah, the swords are easy. This little there's like a little shepherd's crook cane thing that's a little I was a little bit worried about bending it.
Yeah.
But really it's all durable. It slides in and out super easy, but it has enough traction to hold them. I have zero complaints about these.
The meeples themselves are big enough to where putting an item on that isn't like a tiny little, you don't have to, it's not microscopic. It's something that with not a lot of dexterity, you can just drop it right in there.
And in the game, the meeples, once you assign them to somebody, the items rather, they don't move. So it's not like you have to be constantly popping them out, popping them back in, popping them out. Once they're in there for the game, they're set. Mm-hmm. They picked the craziest items to have. There's a bow and arrow, there's a shovel, there's a little, I don't know why I'm showing you, you can't see these. There's a jewel, there's a book, there's a flute, there's a potion bottle, a bomb, a lantern.
So these quest cards, I think, really increase the replayability a lot. I kind of hate it when games will say that, oh, there's a lot of replayability when there's just things that are randomized. For instance, this map. This map gets somewhat randomized to some degree, right? So you can say that there's a lot of replayability because every time you go to play it again, it's a different map. And this space is, 2 spaces over from where it was last game. Whoa, that's crazy, right? And I'm like, that's not that big a deal. Ultimately, you're still seeing the same spaces over and over again. But these quest cards really do, and it's almost something that, kind of gnaws in the back of my mind. I'm like, ooh, do I want to go to get one of those quests? Maybe not, but I kind of got, I just think about it for a second. It's not a game changer, but it definitely is something that, when you completed one once, I was like, how did I not see that? I met the requirement too. Why didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think, and also, you're going these quests, you're trying to figure out what you have to do. It affects, where you go. Because you're like, oh, I could go right here and do this quest. Or if I go over to that one, I could get that quest, and then I could possibly get this treasure later on. So it does just kind of put that extra spin and extra thought process into the game. Because I think almost all of them just have to do with how your people are positioned on the board. So when you're moving all your guys around, you have to be thinking what do I want to do, and how can I do that and achieve that pattern on the quest card.
And it's incentivizing you to go to certain spaces that you may not have wanted to go that much beforehand, but you're looking at it, well, I don't really need to go to this spot, but then I meet this requirement so I can get this, so I can do that, so maybe I will.
Yeah, and because if no one goes for a quest, they start cycling out. So if you're like, oh man, I really want that treasure, but I don't want to do that right now, I want to wait, but if I don't do it right now, that treasure will get discarded and I won't ever be able to go for it. So it does add that last bit of pressure to the game.
And it also increases player interaction, because you could say, ooh, Wes has, this one requires 3 people, orthogonally adjacent to each other. Wes has 2 already. On his turn, he's going to move this guy here and take this card, so I'm going to move there to block him. So it really does increase the amount of thought and decision making you do on every one of your turns.
This guy has a shield and a flute. He's like, arrows, shields.
So I guess the real question is, does this have a place on your shelf?
So I've backed every Tiny Epic game so far. So this kind of has a default place on my shelf either way. I can't have, I think the 5 I already have and not have this one.
Yeah.
That notwithstanding, I think that, one, this definitely belongs on my shelf because the questing aspect, the open world aspect, if you look, the artwork is beautiful. It's bright. It's colorful. Every bit. People compare it a lot to Zelda and Link in those games that I've never played before.
This guy has 2 staffs.
But I think if you like that just kind of free adventure feeling in a game, it's definitely not a super highly strategic, if you're serious about your game nights and you want to get down and it's serious. You want to play a Twilight Struggle or one of those games. This might, it definitely doesn't fit into that category. It's a very fun, exciting, constant revolving door of excitement kind of game.
But if you wanted to have that kind of epic night, but you only had like an hour or so, you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of why these games are so great, is because they give you that feeling of a big game, but they just condense it down into a small package. Not only is the package small, but also the package of time required is small.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I would back this for the item meeples alone. Seriously. Even if I would take them out of the game and just put them on my shelf. Just each one's going to have a different thing. I'll get a shadow box for them. They're that awesome. And hey, the game's pretty dope too.
So I definitely don't see why anybody wouldn't back this game. I recommend the deluxe level because it's only a few dollars more and you get the mini expansion with all the little mushroom meeples that look super awesome. They don't get to hold things, but they're still cool. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, go ahead and click the link down below to get you to that Kickstarter page. And if you're watching this on Kickstarter, the back button is like right there.
And hey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Hey Tom,
Yeah?
you ready to go on a quest?
Hell yeah, I am. Let's do it!